current news podcast.
With Elu and Jesse.
Yes.
Dame Maggie Smith.
Yeah.
Dame Maggie Smith, huh? It's hard to imagine film or even theater, really, without her, you know?
Yeah.
Her recent passing at 89, it's got a lot of us feeling, well, nostalgic, I think is the word. Even those of us who maybe only know her from, like, Harry Potter.
Right.
But when you really look back on it, what a career. So today we are diving deep into, well, what made Maggie Smith so iconic?
Absolutely.
And we're going way beyond that news article that you shared, by the way.
Yes, and there is a lot to unpack, to be honest. Her career, I mean, are you ready for this? It spans over 6 decades.
Wow.
6 decades. Let that sink in for a moment. From her stage debut way back in 1952 to her last film credit, we're talking a lifetime dedicated to this craft. Over 50 films. We're talking countless stage performances. This isn't just a movie star we're talking about here. This is a titan of acting, period.
Okay, now I'm really feeling the weight of this deep dive. This is, you know that news article you mentioned? It said she had an uncredited role in some film back in 1956. 1956.
Wow.
I gotta ask, what does that even mean? Was she just like a face in the crowd back then?
That's a great question, and it really speaks to how different the industry was back then.
Yeah.
Uncredited roles were very, very common, especially early on in a career. It's almost like, you know, you got to pay your dues as an actor, right?
Right.
Small parts, sometimes they're literally left on the cutting room floor, but they're still essential, those stepping stones to bigger things, you know?
So even D. Maggie Smith started out as random person in the background.
Exactly.
Wow. Kind of humbling when you think about it.
It is. And what's amazing is, during that time, she's also performing on stage. She debuted as Viola in 12th Night. Oh, back at 52, actually. Can you imagine juggling these early roles, honing her craft, you know, sort of in the background for years before the awards, the recognition, any of that starts coming her way?
It really makes you wonder if that kind of start, if it instilled in her this incredible work ethic we see throughout her career, like a deep, like, appreciation for the craft itself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, we got to talk about the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, her first Oscar.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely pivotal moment for her. Best Actress in '69 for such a complex role, an unconventional teacher, very idealistic, set in the 1930s, that when just solidified her as a true force to be reckoned with in the industry. And don't forget, she was up against some really big names that year.
Yeah, and the film itself, it tackled these big themes of societal expectations, especially for women. Which, I mean, doesn't that feel like a recurring theme in her career, looking back?
Absolutely.
These strong, independent, often very witty characters she played.
Absolutely. Makes you wonder, was it typecasting at a certain point, or did Maggie Smith simply embody those traits so flawlessly that she became the go-to for those types of roles? It's hard to say, maybe a bit of both.
Right. Like what drew her to those roles to begin with, you know? But, okay, so we're already seeing this incredible talent, the dedication, and then boom, Harry Potter happens.
Right.
And come on, I'm not afraid to admit it, for my entire generation, that is peak Maggie Smith, you know? Did she know what she was getting into? Did she know she was stepping into like a cultural phenomenon with Harry Potter? What was that like for her at that point in her career?
Well, you can't deny the massive impact that Harry Potter's had. But you're right to kind of stop and think, where was she when she took on Professor McGonagall? I mean, she's already a legend. She could have easily just phoned it in.
Oh, but she didn't. She gave us this stern but warm, this incredibly powerful witch. I mean, who else could deliver a line like, have a biscuit, Potter, with such gravitas, you know?
Exactly. And it wasn't just her on-screen presence either. There's this great anecdote about her from the set, actually. A crew member, that they got a little too close to her during filming, and she used her cane, her real cane, by the way, to kind of keep them at bay.
Oh, wow.
Playful, but firm,
Yeah.
you know, even on a massive blockbuster set like that.
See, that's just so Professor McGonagall, though.
Right,
Like,
right, yeah.
it's like she brought a bit of the character with her into real life or something, which makes you wonder how she viewed those later career roles. Because from the strict but fair head of house, she goes on to play the Dowager Countess on Downton Abbey.
Right.
Talk about range.
Totally.
I mean, what connects those two performances, if anything?
Well, they're obviously totally different worlds, but both roles really showcase Smith's, like, mastery of wit and comedic timing. It's impeccable. And here's the thing. It's not just about being funny. Take, for example, her delivery in Downton Abbey. You know that line, "What is a weekend?"
Mm-hmm.
It's such a simple line, but the way she delivers it, this perfect blend of aristocratic detachment and genuine curiosity.
Right.
And then you have McGonagall. She's like transfiguring a bird into a cage and just dryly goes, "I've always wanted to use that spell."
It's that little smirk, that glint in her eye, that's what makes the difference.
That's all in the details.
And the awards recognize that, right? Emmys for Downton, the critical acclaim, it continued well into her 70s and 80s. It's like her talent just deepened with time, it's kind of remarkable when you think about it.
And I think that's an important point as we kind of move into the later years of her career. What was it about those later performances that resonated so much with audiences? You know, even as she entered her 80s.
It's like she wasn't just playing the part anymore, you know? Like she was letting us in on something deeper, something real.
Yeah, you've hit on something really crucial there. A lot of critics, they noted this kind of vulnerability in her later roles. This real depth that went beyond even that sharp wit we were talking about. It wasn't just the lines themselves. It was all in the delivery. A look in her eyes, maybe a slight tremor in her voice. Those little nuances, they added these whole layers to even the simplest scenes. It's what separates, a good actor from a truly great one.
It really is. So, okay, we've covered those early years, the Oscar wins, the like mega stardom of Harry Potter, Downton Abbey, but even then she didn't slow down. That article mentioned films like The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, The Lady in the Van. I mean, these were both released when she was in her 80s.
I know.
Did she ever think about retiring?
It really doesn't seem like it. I mean, she had this incredible work ethic, this drive. She wasn't content to just, rest on her laurels. She was out there seeking new challenges, new stories to tell, even then.
And those roles were so different from what we'd seen before. What do you think drew her to those projects specifically?
Well, there's this quote from a 2015 interview. It was about The Lady in the Van, that film based on the true story about a woman who lived in a van who was parked in the playwright Alan Bennett's driveway.
Right.
So Smith, she played this eccentric, often difficult woman, and she said something really interesting about the character. She said, "I think we all have a fear of ending up alone, of being forgotten." And this character, for all her flaws, she refused to be invisible. She demanded to be seen, to be heard.
Wow. When you put it like that, it makes you think about all those roles as strong, independent women she so often played. It's like they were all, in their own way, refusing to be invisible, right?
Yeah.
Refusing to be defined by anyone else's expectations.
It's a fascinating thread to follow, isn't it? Whether it's like a grand dame on some huge estate or a woman living in a van, Maggie Smith, she found that humanity in every single character she played. And she challenged us, the audience, to connect with them on that deeper level.
And maybe that's the mark of a true icon, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the awards or the fame, but that ability to really touch people's lives, make them think, make them feel something profound.
She certainly did that, yeah. She once said, "I don't want to be forgotten, of course, but I'd rather be remembered for the work than for anything else."
Yeah.
And in that sense, I mean, she succeeded, beyond measure.
She really did. But amidst all that success, there was personal loss, too. The article mentioned her two sons, both actors themselves. What was it like for them growing up with a legend like that as their mother? Did her experience, did it influence their choices at all? Do we know?
There's not a ton out there about their relationship publicly, at least not in the sources we have. Maggie Smith, she was notoriously private, which makes sense given, her level of fame.
Oh, absolutely. But you have to wonder, right? Like, did she encourage them? Did she caution them? It's a tough business after all.
It really is. And while we don't know for sure, there is this one little detail in that 2014 Telegraph interview. She's asked about her sons, and she simply says, "They're both grown men now with their own families, their own careers. I'm very proud of them."
Short, sweet, to the point.
Right.
Classic Maggie Smith.
It really is. But even in that short statement, you really get this sense of deep love and respect for her children, like a real recognition of them having their own paths separate from hers.
It's a good reminder, isn't it? That even amidst this whirlwind of a legendary career, it's those personal connections that matter most. Those intimate bonds that keep you grounded.
Absolutely. And those grounding forces, they only become more important as we navigate grief and loss, which is something Maggie Smith knew about firsthand.
Yeah, yeah, and for Maggie Smith, that loss went beyond the roles that she played. The article mentioned her second husband, Beverly Cross, a playwright. He passed away in 1998.
Yeah.
Over 20 years they were married.
It was a huge loss, and one that she spoke about actually in that 2013 60 Minutes interview. And she said something about grief that really stuck with me. She said, "They say it goes away, but it doesn't. It just gets different."
Wow. There's a quiet wisdom in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like someone who's really sat with that experience and come to understand it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so, it's so honest too. And what I think is remarkable is how she connected that experience of grief to her work. She talked about how the kind of the busyness of a role, of playing a character, it could be a temporary solace. She said a day that is absolutely crowded keeps your mind away from why you are alone. But when it stops, there is that deafening silence.
It's like she found a way to channel those emotions, that deafening silence she talked about, into something, I don't know, creative,
Right.
meaningful.
Exactly. And maybe that's part of what resonated so strongly with audiences in her later performances. It wasn't just craft anymore. It was like this glimpse into the heart of someone who truly understood loss, resilience, the whole spectrum of the human experience, really.
When I think about her career, from those early days, those uncredited roles, to becoming this global icon, I don't know, it's almost like we had the privilege of witnessing something really, really special.
It is a remarkable legacy, and I think as we celebrate her life and her work, what really stands out to me is that unwavering commitment she had to her craft, even with the personal challenges, the industry constantly changing around her. She just never wavered.
It's inspiring. She never stopped challenging herself. She never stopped growing as an artist, right?
Exactly, and maybe that's the greatest lesson we can take from Maggie Smith. To approach our own passions, whatever they may be, with that same dedication, that willingness to embrace it all, the good, the bad, the full human experience, and to never ever stop learning and growing.
That's a beautiful thought. So as we say goodbye to Dame Maggie Smith, we celebrate not just her incredible talent, but her enduring spirit, that refusal to let life's complexities dim her shine. She left behind a legacy that I think will inspire, well, generations to come. I really do.
I think you're right, and it makes me think there's probably a young actor out there right now, maybe even in one of those uncredited roles, who's looking at Maggie Smith's career and finding the courage to chase their own dreams because of it.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll be doing a deep dive into their remarkable careers as well. But until then, we want to hear from you, the listener. Which Maggie Smith role resonated most with you and why? Head over to our social media, share your thoughts. We'd love to keep this conversation going. And as always, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Turn the dial to the daily news. Turn the dial to the daily news. Turn the dial to the daily news. Bringing voices, headlines, and shoes. You turn the dial to the daily news.